colors faded on the sky. Misty taste of chai tea, teardrop in my eyes. Dusty road, take me home to a place I belong. Misinterred and the rhubarb, take me home. Dusty road. I hear his words in the morning hours. He calls for me. The lover's prayer reminds me of my home far away. Walking down that path and I get the feeling that I should have been there yesterday. Yesterday. Dusty road, take me home, take us home to a place I belong. Misinterred and the rhubarb, take me home. Dusty road, take me home. Dusty road.
And this is what Baba has to say about Vijay's father, who raised Vijay, and he's the reflection.
Sulu is greater than me in the sense that he loved me with such deep devotion. He has seen me only once in Pachgani in 1938, and since then has kept far away. Lovers in that respect are truly great. Why did Krishna wash Sudama's feet and drink the water? Because of Sudama's love. He washed not the feet, but the love of Sudama and drank its water. God always is, was, and ever will be. But the existence of God's great and true lovers, like Sudama of Krishna and Sulu and others now, reflect God's true greatness. The greatness of their love is such that it creates faith in a master whom the poor, ignorant lover does not truly know at all. But because of firm faith, the follower is ready to give up his very life for the master. Isn't that greater than God?
So that's who he's the reflection of.
My father as you said, 38, he met Baba as a boy, and he was a 14-year-old boy. He went to RH's house, and he asked about Baba because he read in during Baba's visit with the lady Norina Machpeli, and so it was in the newspaper, and he goes to RH's house and he says, I would like to meet Meher Baba. And RH writes to Baba that this boy likes to visit you. Baba says, send him to Panchagani. And Panchagani, and RHS brings him to Pune station, takes his ticket and gives him a basket of orange and asked him to deliver to Baba. When he reaches Pune, just before Pune, his baggage gets lost in the train, and he was left with the orange basket, and he walks with the nearby bus, and he asks the bus driver, everything is lost and I want to see Meher Baba, go to Meher Baba. And driver says, yes, I know Meher Baba, I worked at his place, hop on. And then he takes him to Panchagani. And at Panchagani, Baba sends his brother, he says, go to railway, that bus station and bring the boy with orange basket. And when he reaches to Bangla, Baba's Bangla, he sees Muhammad was on the veranda and Baba was not there. After some time, Baba comes and he bows down to Baba's feet and tells him that on the train everything was lost, and Baba said, don't worry, take your food, go to dinner, and then sleep, take a rest. And then next morning he wakes up and go to his bathroom. And in the meantime, the door is knocking, and it was Gustaji. And he says, Sulu Sulu, Baba's calling. And he was drenched in wet clothes and underwears. And like that he rushes to Baba. And then he bows down to Baba. And he is this simplicity, Baba, he smiles. And fit for forth, he says. Yeah, he was pleased. And then he let him stay for 2 days and asked him, well, how did you sleep? What kind of thoughts in your mind? And he says, Baba, last night I was thinking of meeting you in the naked. And so that's the way Baba knew his thoughts, and he calls him. So then he keeps him for 2 more days and then gives him some instructions and sends him back by his ticket. And so since then, later on he thought, oh, he must be God. He just knew my thoughts and he was aware. And the same way, when I wanted to take the darshan, I had a long wish to see God in the naked form. And he has given me darshan in the naked form. He must be God. And since then, he got hooked to Baba and he used to keep writing to Baba. And 1941, he got a job at Jabalpur. And then, he served. Then he went to see Baba at Hyderabad, where Baba called him for 2 months. Then he kept him for 2 days. He said, in Godman's company, 2 days are equal to 2 months. In 49 also, when Baba came out of his new life for a short time, so he met Baba then. 46 he got married. 51 I am born. So in 1953, at Nagpur, Barrister Verma's house, my father took us, my mother, father, and as a baby. And Baba has to leave, but Baba was waiting, there is somebody is coming. And then the baby, and he shook my head and blessed. And then he left. Then Baba called him in 1955 for the sahavas. And he was so bad after Baba that he forget his consciousness, he used to forget. So Baba told him, don't forget don't lose your consciousness and be in the world. And he used to feed him with hand, holding him by the bosom. And so that stage he was there. But Baba really brought him to so he could do his activities, attend the office and all. In 1960, so anyway, he used to explore about the mast also, around that place. And you can stop me, please, if the time is up. So, with him on the bicycle, I used to visit nearby musts also. And those were 5th plane musts. And in 1959, Baba sent him a 2-page telegram. The telegram copy is with me. And Baba said, why didn't you come? He would have been happiest. So then in 1960, my father took me to Pune with him for Baba's darshan. And so he stayed at his friend's house, and I was also. It was between 8th June and 11th June. It was the time when Irwin Luck was also there, so I happened to see him also. And so the first day, I was really very curious to see Baba, because I knew the background of his, and I had one very strong experience that I will not tell right now. And so I knew that there are inner worlds, means just a gross world are there. Baba explained about the subtle world and mental world. So there are these worlds are existing, and there are entities which are working around us, and they are in his Lord's direction. So it was the first day, and I was very curious to have a look at him. And I was just, when I knew Baba is in this room, and I just kept on passing. And so I could not manage, so there was a window. And so I raised the shutter, and I just peeped in, and it was Baba's face. And arched back I could see. And I got so absorbed in watching Baba's face. And in the meantime I felt a pressure on my back, on my collar. Somebody pulled me by collar. And I looked at the back, and it was Arch. And he was really very angry at me. So, is it the way you are peeping into Baba's room? Whose son you are? And he was about to beat me, and he said, close the window. A passerby, he closed the shutters. He opened it. No, let him close it. And I closed it, and I was sad and all. Well, after some time, one of the twins, he came running, Sulu, 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 Baba's calling you. And we have to be ready, like without a second losing. And we rushed into Baba's room, and then he had embraced my father, Sulu, and then some talks was going on, I don't remember. I was looking at his face, and then I I felt like I should ask him something. And I looked at him and said, Baba, I get scared in the darkness. And Baba looked at me, he said, do you take my name? And the thought came in my mind that time, oh, he's God, I should not lie to him. And boldly I said, no, Baba, no, take my name. And embraced me. And so that was the very first moment and prominent personal moment that I had with Meher Baba, and very strong, that every day I remember that every time, whenever I think, and she say, take my name. Yeah, and I hope it's for everyone to take his name. And so 3-4 days we were there, and we used to see Vinla, Kanda. And then I used to play around him while he's playing cards and pressing the button, and Baba say, oh, who is doing this? I didn't call the attendant here. And then he said, oh, mischievous boy. And one day I he entered in a small cabin. And I used to always have eye on Baba, where he's going, so I leave everything playing and I just chase him. And so I saw Baba entering in the room, and he entered, I followed him. So inside it was a small cabin, and there was a bust of Baba, and one sculptor, he was making his face. And he looked at his own bust and telling the artist, okay, like this. And I'm looking at his face, and he did not mind my presence, like he allowed himself. And there were like moments when he's very silent, observing a dead body from front of Guru Prasad passing. He came out of his room, looking at it like 1,000 years back. And I came there, oh, shouting, woo! And Mandli says, shh, Baba is there. And I go like this, and he looks like, and gives a look of curiosity. There is no anger, no any unhappiness. It was so loving. I say, oh Baba, he was never showed any unpleasing or unhappiness, and he was always so kind. So these were the moments, and yeah, so that was in 1960, and 62 also I had a chance to meet in the East-West gathering, but it's 5,000 people. So he comes on the stage and he waves to the crowd, and I stood on the stool and the tears started flowing. I don't know why, I just crying like I know him since ages. Yeah. Then of course I had a chance to sit in the car behind the fleet. Baba's car used to follow some 2-3 cars. So I had a chance to sit in the car and go to visit some local house visits, and yeah, in the ashram also. Of course, in 69 when he dropped his body, I got the chance to meet him. And then later on, then it so happened that I got a chance to visit Myrtle Beach. Adi wrote a letter to the US Consul because earlier my visa got registered. And in turn, Elizabeth Patterson also wrote to the US Consul. So Baba allowed me to visit. And see, Mandli used to say that we have seen his, because all the people started flocking into Maharazad and Mehrabad, and Mandli used to say that we have seen the human side of God. Now we see his divinity through you people. And that's what I saw when I met those great ladies, Kitty, Elizabeth, for that Phyllis Frederick and Ivy Deuce and all Jane Hans and Darwin Shaws. I got to see all of them meted. And his lovers, so great. I say, my God, he's not like Upasni Maharaj confined into a small place, Rahuri, or Sai Baba like Shirdi. He's all over. Oh God, he's God himself. And it touches me. So I love visiting people, his lovers, all over, and yeah. So I think I should end it here.
I never had any intention of going to Italy. I was really interested in Europe. You know, I'd been to South America and the Orient, India. And, but then suddenly I felt compelled to go. And I went over and visited Nick nearby, and he showed me all these pictures of Assisi. But something was impelling me to go. And so there was a sahavas, you're going to hear about it, going on. But somehow I just felt like I needed to. The sahavas is in San Gemini, which is about an hour and a half from Assisi. But I felt like I had to go to Assisi. And I didn't have any reason. I just had to go. And I just felt like this has happened with me with Baba before. He just makes me do something. And I just felt like he was making me go to Italy, and I didn't know why. But what was part of what was drawing me was Baba's cave. I'd heard stories from Dorothy and others of Baba's cave. And so I was there in Italy, and it was time. I was going to have a taxi drive me up to Baba's cave. And I was sitting and reading about the cave and Baba's experience there. And it said that right before, I'm sitting there in the cafe waiting for the taxi guy to come, and I'm reading that Baba took a rosary from St. Francis to the cave. So I had about a half an hour, and I ran into one of the stores, and there's a zillion little stores selling these beautiful olive wood rosaries with a little St. Francis on it. So I went and bought a whole bunch of them, and then the taxi took me up to Baba's cave. And the cave was, I can't even tell you how amazing Baba's cave is there. But as you probably know, Baba said that he planned the next 2,000 years in the cave with the, I don't know if you call it the hierarchy, the spiritual forces.
6th and 7th plane master.
The high dudes of his entourage. 6 and 7 plane saints. So I sat there for a long time, and when I went in, they had just had the first sahavas right before, and so there were all these little Baba pictures there. And it was just like being welcomed home. So I just took all these little St. Francis rosaries and put them in front of the Baba's picture and sat there for a long time. Really had this sense of, you know, something really important is going to be unfolding here in Italy. And I felt, I had a wonderful, blissful experience there. And I went away from it just with my heart so full. And I had been reading this book, which I highly recommend, about St. Francis, called My God and My All. It's probably one of the best spiritual books I've ever read in my life. And so, but in the stories, Francis is constantly, he's praying and he's praying. He's one chapter or another, he's praying and praying and praying to God. And I'm thinking to myself, what on earth could he really be spending so much time talking to God about? I mean, you know, we do the prayers and everything, but it was just hours and hours he would spend. So, having been to Baba's tomb and kind of, you know, thought about this St. Francis Baba connection. Of course, St. Francis was one of Baba's favorite saints. And if you read his life, he was the ultimate new lifer. He gave up everything and lived only for God. And he lived a whole lifetime that way, just barefoot walking around in the cold and the rain. And he was so inspiring and just totally relying on God. So I went to the different places, St. Francis places, and felt very just touched by them. But one in particular was a place called the Porciuncula. It was the second place, you know, St. Francis rebuilt 3 chapels. And it was the second chapel. And so I had really wanted to go to San Damiano, which was the first one. And then I wanted to go to Porciuncula, because that's where the order, the Franciscan order, was actually started. And so I went into, and this is a teeny little building, and I went in there, and I just felt so connected to Baba. I could just feel the prayers that were coming. And all of a sudden, I started hearing this prayer. For about half an hour, it's like it was in the stone and in the walls. It just came pouring through. And I'm like, oh, this is what he used to pray. So I was like, I need to get my cell phone and record this. And then I'm going, no, you can't do that sitting in this holy place. And so, but I went back to my room later and started writing about the day. And the whole prayer started coming back. And just a real sense of, it's sort of this mix between Christian and Baba prayers, but prayer of praise and love and joy. And there's so much more, but short story, long story, very short. I came back to the States, and Jennifer Tinsman had just come back. And she had received an inspiration to start a center there. And she asked if I would be part of that. So this is something that's in the works, we're thinking about, we're looking at. So nothing is manifest yet, but hopefully you'll hear about it soon. So that was our little project, which is also, but a cool little thing happened on the way back to the airport, my second trip this fall. And that was a bus driver got off the highway and took a detour just through the town of San Gemini. And then got back on the highway. And I'm like, really, Bob? So that's a segue to the San Gemini sahavas. 2 of them.
A wonderful opportunity to be with Baba folk in a foreign country that was very beautiful. And to be with my wife without being distracted by other things for a whole week and beyond, just enjoying the environment. And as was mentioned, great people. And wonderful hostess. And Emily, indeed.
Yeah.
And,
Gracious, very gracious.
yeah. Super countryside.
Clean, beautiful. Larry and I that was our first trip in 15 years. We hadn't been out of Myrtle Beach. And so it was nice reconnecting like that, getting closer. Nice love connection, but the city itself was beautiful, it was clean, people were nice, friendly, easy to get around, walking.
Through the labyrinths.
Yeah. We had sneakers on. We didn't have Birkenstocks without a back. Yeah, the chains going down.
It was not easy to get around.
Did you also go to the cave?
Yeah.
Got zonked in the cave. And the precursor to that, which I'm almost hesitant to reveal, because I don't want to embarrass anybody. But my wife hears something after we're wending our way through these switchbacks and trying to find the right direction. And God bless that Bob was there with a map or something. I think it was you. And
Patrick.
it was actually Rob
David
at
or
the time.
Patrick?
It was Bob at the time who sent us in the right direction. And the mountain girl, who was having no problems at all, was able to
the first in line.
forge ahead way in front of us. And then in the distance, as we're approaching the particular cave that was our object of our searching, Phyllis hears.
And we stopped in our tracks. I said, wait a minute, stop,
What is
listen.
that?
You hear
Yeah, what is that
What
noise? It was Marinush sobbing in the cave.
No.
And
She was very moved.
and she's always so jolly. So this was a wonderful contrast, a very, very touching contrast, and it set the stage for me personally that, well, this is a special place. And when I got in, indeed it was thick with the presence that you'd wanted to. It's reminiscent of the tomb in that respect. Yeah. And by the way, we got a picture of these two guys trying to go through successfully on the trails to the cave.
Torture.
Yeah, it was quite a scene.
Mayor News, would you like to share that moment where the sobs came on?
I know why it came, because it was the second attempt for me to go there. And what happened that day, I was almost missed the team, and then, but I was, and I told Baba, if you don't let me to go to the cave, then I never gonna go and be able to go there, because who's gonna show me, who's gonna be the tour guide? And then eventually, somebody came and said they are there, so I just came, and that's why probably I was sobbing. But what happened was, it has so much of Baba in there. It was like a call. Baba was calling from far distance, and I just knew where to go or how to do, and I was just flowing. Then when I got to the cave, because I think among the group I was the first one to get it, and then all I saw was Meher Baba. I didn't see St. Francis, I didn't see any other saints. It was just Baba was so present there, and the purity of him. It was, I felt like a little baby newborn. I mean, it was so beautiful, and then the purity of his presence in that cave just made me just to sob and sob. But then I had a chance actually to go back again a second time on October 6th, and I was all by myself. And there was a barricade before the cave, like about maybe like 100 yards away from the cave. They made a little barricade because probably it was a rain or something, the road wasn't good. And then there were a couple, a young couple, Italian, were following me, so I was just thinking that, I don't want them to see that I'm going to cross the barricade, because they're going to think that, they're going to call the police or something. Like, this, this woman is just going crazy, and she's like, crossing over the barricade. So basically I just paused there, and I sat there until they left, and then I looked to see if anybody's behind. Nobody. And then I crossed the barricade and went into the tomb. And then I did say the prayers, and the arti, Persian prayers and the Persian arti, because I know it by heart. So then I sat down there and to meditate. I had 2 hours. I told the taxi driver to come back certain time, so I had 2 hours. So I was sitting there and then meditating, and then I heard like monks are repeating, love, service, obedience, surrender. Love, service, obedience, surrender. I mean, it was just continuously going, and then I was hearing it. And then suddenly a thought came to my mind that, Baba, how can I please you today? I mean, just from nowhere, I don't know where that thought come. I usually don't ask that. So that came, and then I opened up my eyes, and then I looked to the side, and sure enough, there was a broom. So I took it that Baba wants me to clean up his cave. And how I came to that conclusion was like few days ago, Valerio was asking me to share your story of how you came to Baba, and I never wrote it, I never discussed it with anyone. So in that story, I remembered an episode that I was like 16, 17 years old, and then I went to Pir Saps, which was a holy Zoroastrian worship place, that there was a mass, it's basically like a pier, So, and when I was with my cousin, so there were like young people, young boys and young girls, and we went there with our parents, and then this lady who is the keeper of that holy place, it's actually on the outer skirt of Yazd, which is the desert town, but it's on the mountain side. And the story of that, how this pier came out, this holy place came out to form, was when the Arab came to conquer Persia, and there were actually robbing and killing people in a sense. It wasn't loving. It was more like torturing people, keep killing the men, and basically enslaving the women and raping and all that. So what happened was this princess, local princess, she was on her horse, and then she was running into the mountain to escape this group of Arab men on their horses that running after her. And she asked God to help him, to hide, to help her to be hidden from, this. And then the mountain opens, and then she goes into the mountain, and then the mountain closes. And it happened, a green scarf of her was showing off from the mountain. So basically God saved her in a sense, because it's always better to let go of your life than to get all those karma, that burden of karma. So, the significance of that location is when the virgin girls go there and they start to clean up, the house cleaning, the water starts to pour down, and so the take care of that location ask us few girls that, come on girls, right now come and take a look. It's like 9 o'clock in the morning, and then the water is dripping little, but then you will see in the evening that if you clean it up, it's going to pour faster. So basically what we all did is getting some sponge, and then the boys were helping us. They were giving us company. They were bringing us a bucket of water and a sponge and soap, and then we girls were cleaning. And then at the end, like around 3-4 o'clock when we went to the temple, you know, the amount of the water was tremendously higher or more than originally it was in the morning. So it was just pouring and pouring and pouring. And then the caretaker was mentioning, see the pier or the holy place is responding to the purity of the soul, you know, to that purity of the soul. So then I shared that like 2-3 days before, and now I'm in Assisi, that Baba stayed there, and then suddenly I'm asking Baba, how can I please you? And I see this broom. So this is how Baba connects. I mean, I never thought about that episode for like maybe, you know, years and years. It never happened until Valeria asked me to tell a story how you came to Baba. So I think that's how I just got the basically message that Baba wants me to clean it. And for 2 hours, I was just repeating Mehr Baba, Baba's name, cleaning the ceiling, the walls, the floor, went outside, cleaned the roof, the outside, and it was so beautiful, you know, it was so peaceful, it was so divine, I mean, it was a gift. So then I came and I caught the taxi and all that. And then, so at the cave, it was all Baba. But then I had an interaction with the saint, St. Francis, twice. And once it was, do I have time? Is that
A couple of more minutes.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so in April, when I went with my sister to Assisi, I wanted to go to the cave, but then we were kind of in a rush that we didn't make it to the cave, and then we have to catch our train and so forth, so we didn't make it. But then when I was walking up on the hill there, I felt like a hand, like touching on my back, and I felt it was Saint Francis himself, and he gave me a message. He says, later on I wrote it down. He said, I not only let go of the world and all its belongings, but I also have let go of my feelings and of my thoughts in order to receive my beloved solely and wholly, fully and completely. And then there was a Persian 2 words, tamam and kamal, is a Sufi term. Tamam and kamal means to the end and to the fullness, to the completion. So then I received that. Then the last time, the last day actually, I was with Diane and Anne, and we went to St. Francis's tomb. So there is like a group of people were circling. So I also went, I had a little candle, and I said, good to give a homage, to a saint when you go. So I passed, was circling, and then there was a little barricade or, rods. So I hold on and I open a conversation with him, and I said, St. Francis, I have Meher Baba, I said, Meher Baba, like, what do you think about it? And he appeared. I saw him appear. I mean, I don't know, it's basically not physically, but then you feel his presence, And then he says, Toda, and Toda or Todas means completely, totally. And then it reminded me of the word of him saying, solely and full and wholly, fully and completely, tamam and kamal. Like, this is all you need, Meher Baba.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jai Baba.
So I was in the cave right after she cleaned it, and it was very clean. And it was just
She cleaned it for you too.
like the whole roof and everything. She did a great job.
Thank you.
We had a lot of fun too. But I did want to get back to like something that mental block.
Carolyn.
Carolyn said about getting there, because when I got the call the same day, I think it was Jane who called me, and I had been in the lake in Lake George, and this man was in the lake also. His wife was swimming, and him and I were standing there because it was a little cold, so we took our time. And he said I had to go to Italy. This is the morning before I got the call. He had been there many times. He is Italian. And out of the blue, he just said, because he knew I just retired and that I was Italian, and he just said, you have to go to Italy. So that happened that morning. I had also gone to a workshop, a writing workshop that day, about doing things out of the box, same day. And I also had another thing that I thought my sister, who was ill, and I thought she was praying to St. Francis. So I found out it was the Serenity prayer, so it really wasn't the prayer, but it was all Baba. Like, what I feel is like he gets you places, even though you could even interpret wrong what, you know, what you're getting, but it was like, it was just like a sign that I was supposed to go.
Serenity written by Francis? Or maybe I'm wrong.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was at the time, and I'm like, well, I have to go because my sister passed away, and I have to go to see her in Assisi. That was kind of one of my motivators. So I had like 3 things happen, and I just made the decision very quickly, which was great. And then the people were really a big part of it. Getting closer to local Myrtle Beach people was super great. And the staff was great, helpful, and so the cave for me was, I'll just say quickly, I went in the cave, well, the second time I went in with Leica, actually, by ourselves, after the group thing, and she walked in after me, and there was like a door that closed, like it closed the entrance, so we both felt like we had to stay in there, and we did for about an hour. So what I did was I thought of all the people in my life that I worry about or I try to take care of. I just went over it all and gave it to Baba, and he absolutely, like he always does, said he's going to help. And I really feel it because I heard it. So I have to remember it, that he will, and he does. Those were 2 highlights for me.
So
I had no intention of going. Anne had told me she was going months before it. I thought, well, that's really nice. And Jane had said months, I think, before, why don't you come? We're going to go to Italy. And my friend Jean also said it. But I thought, well, I can't go. I'm not going to go. And all of a sudden, Nick was on the porch at Baba's house. And I was asking him if he wanted to record his story. And he was busy, but he said I could call him and see if there was time. And he said that there was, he was busy setting up, you know, who was coming to Italy and that there was one opening, but he thought it was filled. So anyway, when I called him, there was, I left him a message. I said, actually, I have 2 things to ask you. Do you have any time to record anything? And is there still an opening for Italy? And my husband got wind of that there was even a trip, and he kept saying, you have to go. This is such a chance of a lifetime, you know, you have to go. I said, but there's not even room. There's no way I can go. And he kept saying, no, you have to go. Find out, you have to go. And so when I left that message for Nick, he took it as that I was really interested, I guess, and I guess he told Jane right away, and she calls me and says, you're coming to Italy. And I thought, what? So anyway, it just all fell into place in that sort of magical way Baba does things. It's like the seed got planted and it just like, you know, exploded into, okay, I'm going. And I think for me the most exciting thing was going to the cave. That's what I really wanted to do. I can't say I had an experience there, but just getting there, and getting back up, which is a little challenging, was, it just, I don't know, it was great. Also, I don't know whether to tell, I'll try to say it real quick. So Valeria was somebody that I'd heard of forever and I really wanted to meet. And it so happens that my sister, who's not a Baba lover, was in the same place in San Gemini with Valeria 8 years ago with her daughter. And it just, I mean, talk about a coincidence or a synchronicity. She loved Valeria, and she had a little, like, Baba thing that happened there, which my sister wouldn't think of it that way, but it certainly was. I mean, Valeria went to write something down for them, and Baba's picture slipped out of the notebook. And she said, "Oh, God, Mayor Baba," like that. Wow. And so Valeria said, "Oh, you know who he is? Like, why would you say it like that? He's so wonderful." And my sister probably said, "Oh, my mother and my sister into that stuff, but, you know, I'm not." And then she noticed other pictures of Baba around the place. And she just was crazy about Valeria. She just felt totally connected to her right away. And even to the point where, I don't know if it was like a year or two later, out of the clear blue, my sister said, "You know, that Valeria is like a perfect Baba lover." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "Oh, she's just so nice. She's like the perfect, if there could ever be a perfect Baba lover, it's Valeria." It's like, you know, and there are other connections to Baba with my sister, but she doesn't see it that way, but I do. But anyway, it just made it all feel very, very special, and I just am thrilled that I got to go. And I also, I mean, I live here, but I don't get to hang out with people very much. So the whole time, you know, I could just be with everybody I knew and some people that I hadn't known that I really got to like a lot. And it just was very, very special. I'm very grateful to Baba that he let me go.
And I was recipient.
And
Well, I've been dying to go to Italy for years and years, and I begged Baba to please let me go while I'm still in this body. So he finally gave in and let me go. It was something I've been looking forward to for ages, looking at Baba's pictures in Portofino and the films with the ladies with Baba and back in the 30s. So this experience was like everything I dreamed of and more, because you can't imagine how beautiful Italy is if you haven't been there. If you have been there, then you know. And the place that we stayed at, Valeria's home, it's like, you can't even describe it. It's just incredible. It's like, I don't know, it's called a palazzo. I guess it really is. It was her home. And to be with a group of people that were all interested in Baba, and to have a sahavas in this beautiful place, the room that I had, open the windows, and there's an incredible view to die for. And I keep thinking about that view.
She was in ecstasy.
You're way up on top of a mountain. All these little towns in Italy are built way up on top of the hill, I guess for defense back in the old days. But this place was on many different floors. Like I never walk on stairs. I hate stairs. But it's like 3 flights up to my room, and after a while it was like nothing. It just floated up and down. And then Valeria took us up to, there's what they call, I guess, a tower maybe. It's way up high, and you can look out of every window. You get a full view of the whole town of Little San Gemini, which is a sweet little town. We would go out walking in the evenings, and everybody would be out walking. It's a wonderful experience. But thinking back on it now and, you know, kind of assimilating the experience, I'm thinking about Baba's presence in that beautiful place. I think that he would have really loved to be there, and I can feel him, think of him sitting at that long table, because we had a very long table for everyone sitting in this room. And it was a very nice communal feast every night. Actually, it was a feast. And to think of Baba sitting there with all of us and going up and looking at that view, I think he would have really loved this place. And Valeria's presence there and her love for Baba was very, very strong, and we all felt it was just a wonderful experience. Can't say enough about it. When I go back.
She wants to live there.